The first thing I noticed wasn't the bear itself, but the fact that its fur had been wet-combed into a straight, unnatural part down the center of its spine, glistening with a substance that smelled unmistakably like cheap lavender shampoo. I work as a timber cruiser in the Northern Cascades, a job that requires me to hike miles off the established trails to estimate lumber volume for future sales. It's solitary work that demands a certain level of comfort with silence and the knowledge that you are effectively removed from the food chain. You get used to finding weird things in the deep brush, old rusted cars, illegal grow ops, the occasional animal carcass. But biological anomalies are usually the result of disease or decay, not deliberate design. I was working a block in Sector 4, a drainage basin that hadn't seen human foot traffic in at least a decade, when I found the black bear sow. She was slumped against the base of a cedar tree, breathing shallowly. My first instinct was to unholster my bear spray and back away, assuming she was injured and dangerous. But she didn't track my movement. I watched her for 10 minutes through my binoculars, and that's when the details started to resolve into something nauseating. She wasn't just injured, she was drowsy. And she had been modified. Her claws had been filed down to blunt, pink nubs. The coarse hair around her ears had been trimmed with scissors, leaving jagged, pale skin exposed. A bright red nylon ribbon was tied in a complex bow around her neck, cutting deep into the fur. I should have turned back, but the sheer absurdity pulled me forward. I followed a trail of dragged earth away from the bear, leading down into a steep ravine. The air grew heavy, not with the scent of pine or rot, but with a cloying, chemical floral perfume. At the bottom of the ravine, hidden under a canopy of vine maple, I found a clearing that looked like a grotesque parody of a salon. A heavy steel operating table, likely stolen from a veterinary clinic, was bolted to a poured concrete slab. Beside it were buckets filled with soapy, bloody water, piles of shaved animal fur, and industrial grooming tools, horse shears, metal combs, and heavy-duty nail files. A wet, rhythmic rasping sound froze me in place. I crouched behind a nurse log, peering through the ferns. A man was standing at the table, his back to me. He was massive, wearing a homemade suit of thick, bite-proof canvas and heavy welding gloves. Strapped to the table with heavy leather belts was a mountain lion. The cat was conscious but lethargic, eyes rolling back in its head. The man was humming a low, tuneless melody as he ran a wire brush through the cougar's tawny coat. He wasn't hurting it, he was grooming it with a terrifying, tender obsession. He paused, picked up a pair of shears, and began to carefully trim the whiskers from the cat's muzzle, whispering, "Make you pretty, make you clean." The realization of the physical strength required to casually restrain and manicure an apex predator made my stomach turn over. Then, the wind changed. The man stopped humming. He didn't turn around immediately. He just set the shears down on the metal table with a deliberate clink and took a deep breath, tasting my scent. I didn't run. Running triggers the chase instinct in predators, and I knew instantly that this man was the apex of this valley. I backed away, step by silent step, for 100 yards before turning and hiking at a punishing pace back to my truck. I drove until I hit the county highway, my hands shaking so hard I could barely grip the wheel. I never reported the location, I told my supervisors the terrain was unstable and the timber worthless. But the horror didn't end in the woods. 3 days later, I was brushing my teeth in my own bathroom, safe in the suburbs. I turned my head to check a scratch on my neck and froze. Woven into the hair at the very nape of my neck, a spot I couldn't see without a double mirror, was a small, intricate, perfect braid, tied off with a piece of red nylon thread. I live alone. I sleep alone. I never felt him touch me. Permission to use this story. You may use this story only if you state that the creator is Nightmare Horror House at the very beginning of your video or post. Failure to credit Nightmare Horror House will result in a copyright claim.